All right, everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to start on a bodice belt. Now, notice I said start, not finish. This is not an Adam Savage one-day build sort of thing. This is probably going to take me a couple of days, maybe even a week or so, because I've got like 6 projects in the works, and I'm doing them all at the same time, which is a recipe for disaster, so I'm going to try to take my time on this. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to build this bodice belt, and I've opted to use a pattern, and I'm going to put the links down below, but this is from Weaver Leather. So if you've never checked them out, totally do so. I think it's Chuck Dorset, I think is his last name. Does phenomenal videos over there about everything you can imagine dealing with leather. For this one, they did a little bit different pattern than what I'm going to do, but I'm going to walk you through kind of where I'm at with this project. So this is the pattern that you can see here. You're going to cut up 2 of these pieces and then 2 of these pieces, though I'm going to change this. But what this pattern looks like, you know, cut out. You can see I've had mine taped up and everything. I'm building this for my wife, and so one of the things I did is I started out with just the normal size pattern, and I thought about maybe I'd have to kind of blow it up or shrink it down or whatnot. But before I did all that, just kind of a tip for some of you beginners, I love using craft foam to kind of replicate some of the stuff that I'm making out of leather before I actually cut into leather. So I've already sized this for my wife, and so I've got 4 panels. So this is like the right side panel or left side panel. I guess it doesn't matter because it's symmetrical. And so I've got the other panel. So there's 4 panels in this that would, you know, wrap around like this. Well, these panels, kind of getting a gauge for it, is not, it's just too big. It's not the right size. So I'm scaling this down, not the panel itself. The panel itself here is actually really good, but the back panels are what I've scaled down. So instead of there being 2 back panels, I'm going to opt for just 1. And so what I did was I had my wife put this on and hold it in place, and then I marked on these 2 pieces of foam where that overlap should be so that I've got a little bit of playroom on here, okay? And so now, as you can see here, I'm opting to do a left panel, a full back panel, and then kind of a right panel with some space in between. So if I need to let it out, I can. If I need to take it in, I've got some playroom with that as well. Because one of the things, if you watch the video that I'll link below, is that this is all done in just kind of veg tan leather, and it's one-sided. So if there is any adjustments, you can just kind of cut off an extra ½ inch or whatever, kind of tool the edge, and then just go again from there after you put in your grommets or rivets or whatever. Not rivets, but grommets. I'm going to be very ambitious in mine. I'm going to try to make a double-sided bodice belt so that, you know, depending on the costume, you can wear it one way or the other way. So I might be biting off a little bit more than I can chew. I know I could easily just do this twice and just have 2 pieces, but I kind of want the challenge of making one that's reversible, so I'm going to try that. This is why I said this is not a one-day build. This is I'm going to start on it, get frustrated, go have a drink, come back at it tomorrow, get frustrated just by looking at it, go have another drink, and then come back. I find that if I take my time and brainstorm as I go through, I'm less likely to mess something up, and stuff will come out much, much better. So you'll see me change over the course of this video because I'm taking my time on this one, okay? So here's what I'm going to do. Today, my goal is I'm going to cut these pieces out of leather and get that part started, and then kind of start getting all the alignments of my grommets and all my holes and stuff like that. So you're not going to have to watch me. When we come back, you'll see that I've got all the pieces cut out, okay? All right. Okay, so I am done cutting out all my pieces. Celebration. But I'm not quite done with them just yet. So let me just give you a rundown. I am using 5 to 6 ounce leather, which is actually, this one is pretty supple, pretty good for the price. It was just kind of cheap tandy, but it's kind of bordering on a little bit smaller than 5 ounce. Anyway, here's all my pieces. All right, now, here's what I've done. For me, because I'm trying to cut out a back and front piece, right, to glue them together so that it can be reversible. You've got to be really careful about matching up your pieces. Now, with this pattern, it is supposed to be symmetrical. However, in my experience, I don't cut symmetrical. I get off somewhere in tracing my pattern. So, I use my pattern, in this case, once to make, let me get all this out of the way, to make, let's say, this piece, and then I'll use this piece as my next pattern. So here's what I've done. I've got my two pieces that are going to go together for this one panel. As you can see, I've marked these. So for me, the way that I do this, because I'm a biologist, I think of medical terms. So this is patient right back and patient right front. So if I'm the patient, it's my right side. But here's what I did. So let's say that I took this panel. This was one that I used. Then I think about, okay, what way do I need to make it so that it's facing backwards? And then I use this as my new kind of pattern, right? So then I know that I get kind of this right fit, okay? Now, what I discovered was whenever I cut this out, even though the top and bottom should be symmetrical, I've got a little bit different of an arc going on here than I do up top, which is fine. I'm going to work with that and use that as my top and this is my bottom, because I took the paper and folded it and I'm like, it seems the same, but I've made it a little differently apparently. Anyway, that's what I've done on all these. So I've got my different pieces, my front and backs paired up. Okay, now with that being said, here's another recommendation, something that I've just started doing because my patterns will cause these not necessarily to line up exactly correct, even if I'm using, you know, the front part of this. So what I've seen a lot of other people do is they'll take like this piece and they'll go ahead and glue it together to the next piece on the back side and then just cut it, right? And that would ordinarily be the way to go if you're just doing kind of these easy panels, like a wallet if you're not doing any tooling on it. I am going to be doing tooling, and I can't have a back piece and a front piece and try to tool both of those. So I need them still separate. So here's what I'm doing. After you get these panels together, what I started trying to figure out is I need them close enough in terms of lining up. So what I've been doing before I turn the camera on is just getting a few of these and getting one of my lines and seeing how all of these start to line up. Okay, so for example, on this one, everything lines up pretty well along the edges. Again, close enough. Once I'm done tooling, because it's going to get wet, it's going to change a little bit. Some places may shrink, some may stretch out a tiny bit because of the tooling. I'm going to go back and double check that, but for now, I just need it close enough. But any pieces where there's a major gap, I might want to trim those off. So for example, on this piece, this lines up very well, this one lines up very well, this one lines up well, this one lines up well. The only place that it's off a tiny bit is right here in that little area. I know that's probably too small for you to see. I can throw it up to the camera, but you know, you still can't see much. There's a little bit there. I might try to get the Dremel and just kind of knock that down a bit, or it could wait. It's pretty small. If it's something's bigger than this, you know, like a fingernail's width, I definitely try to trim that off. That one I'm gonna come back to, but I might just mark it with the pencil and just try to shave it just ever so gently. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do here on the rest of these is kind of check the edging, make sure that these are close enough, and then I will be able to start tooling these. I always advise mark which way you want these to go together, however you want, if it's a top right corner to top right corner. That way when you put these together and glue it, you know the exact orientation. So don't get ahead of yourself on that. mark the backs if it's going to be something that you can't see. Sometimes you can mark the edges because you can just sand that back off. So you can make a tiny tick mark or something just to line stuff up. The other thing I wanted to note, if you've been a watcher of this channel, you know that I like imperfections. And again, you may be like, dude, you're really focusing on a lot of small stuff. I know. But this is a good example of that. This is just cheap Tandy leather. It's still good leather, but if you're looking for things without imperfections and different finishes, yeah, it may not be what you're looking for. But this one's got this cool like scar on it, which I think it's going to be awesome. Just kind of incorporating that into the patterns and the staining and stuff that I'm going to do. So I want to make sure that that's on a certain side of this one. So I'm excited about that little piece getting in there, and I didn't even know it was going to be there till I cut it. Okay, next step, trim these up, make sure they fit, make sure everything's marked, and then I'm going to start tooling these to get the patterns that I want. We're going to do a glue up, punch in all of our holes, and we're done. All right. That's for a later date. So with magic, I'll see you in a couple of days. Alright, well, I have finished with all the tooling and my hand is cramped up and it hurts because I tooled all day. Not all day, but a lot. Anyway, this is belt number 1. So if you get it put together here, you can see that this is going to be the 2 front panels. You can kind of see the tooling there with the single back panel. And then the other is similar. As you saw, for this one I used a hammer to get the large kind of tooling marks on there. It looks kind of like armor. I've seen this done where you can stain this kind of a dark metal, kind of a gunmetal gray, and then you can come back over it and highlight it with a little bit of acrylic and actually get a pretty convincing metal color on this type of tooling for leather. Actually really simple, has great little divots. I'm excited to see the stain on those. But before I can put stain on there, I've got to clean up the edges. So I'm gonna get my edge beveler, I'm gonna take the edges down just a little bit, and then I've actually got to put some neat's foot oil on these. Number one, these are very dry pieces. This leather is probably a year old, and so it's lost a lot of its moisture from where I've been storing it. But the second thing is I am using a couple different dyes on here. So I'm familiar with this EcoFlow Gel Antique, and I like it a lot. This one, I'm not going to really worry about the oiling the leather first. This one will be fine because I can smooth it in quick enough as it dries and gets absorbed that this will turn out okay. I'm not too worried about that one.
This one, though, I am. This is an alcohol-based dye. And two things. Alcohol is going to dry your leather out. So if you're using alcohol-based dye, you should always at least put some oil on it, at least after the dye job. Because this is so dry, this is going to get sucked in super quick. That can lead to splotching, especially on some of this cheaper veg tan, where if you have those imperfections, you're going to have this kind of splotchiness because of that. So one of the ways to even that out, of course, is after you dye, you can put oil on it. I'm going to put on the neat's foot oil beforehand. Let that dry. Don't oil it and then immediately dye it, though I have heard people doing where they mix the oil and the dye together and do that. Maybe try that on a scrap piece, but some people have reported pretty good results with that. But I'm gonna go ahead and apply my neat's foot oil first, let it dry for a few hours, and then I'm gonna come back with the dye. So those are my next steps. I'll show you those as we go through. So, couple things. I'm finishing up the edges on this red one, but I've ran into a problem, but I'm just not even going to worry about it. So here's the issue. Here's where I'm at. We've got everything stained. This probably is going to need a little bit more oil, but we'll see how that goes. Couple things. So first off, I'm finishing the edges here with Tokonol. Tokonol, which is a really good edge burnisher. Yeah, can't even talk today. I've had too many of those. Not really, but I need some more. So I'm finishing up these edges, and then I need to clean it up a little bit in terms of just kind of wiping it down. So here's my problem that I ran into. Two problems, actually. So my whole plan here was to make a double-sided one of these, right? But I'm trying to do it out of two different pieces. So the thing that I did was, let me grab my other piece. Right, so I'm joining two smaller pieces, not smaller pieces, but two thin pieces of leather, right? So the idea, as I said, was we're going to line these up and all that fits, okay? So that looks fine right now. My concern with this, however, is once these are stuck together, so for example, imagine that these are glued, saying like rubber cement. If we're glued in a complete line here, right, everything lines up, we're good to go. But this is a piece that's going to be worn. So whenever it flexes, you might notice that this side is actually longer than, or the underside is going to be longer, right? As it bends this way. And then this way, the red's going to be longer, simply because of the curvature. That's going to put some pretty weird stresses on this being glued up. And I'm not sure that that's something that I want to deal with.
I've been thinking about this. Maybe a way to correct for that is to use a thick piece with a really thin tooled piece on the back, and then maybe not, that may not cause it to have too much of an issue. I don't know yet. Anyway, that's actually not the biggest part of this problem. The biggest part of this problem is the grommets, the damn grommets that I wanted to use. So we imagine that we put these two together, right? So this gets us right about 4 millimeters in size and thickness. There's a few spots where it's like 3.8, but generally we're looking at 4. And so what happens is our little grommets here, if you can kind of take a look at that. There we go. These measure right at 4 millimeters. Now, there may be 6 millimeter grommets out there at 3/16. I either A, didn't find them, and B, they wouldn't be here in time for when this project is needed. So what I'm basically saying is this grommet will go through both of these sides, but there's not enough on the other side to grab on of the little cap. And it's not even a cap. I don't know what it's called on the back side. So if you're yelling at me right now to try to tell me what it's called, I know it has a name. I just don't know what it is. Sleeve. Maybe it's a sleeve? Collar. I think it's a collar. So there's no room for that to be grabbed onto for something that's going to be twisting and moving under some pressure. I'm not comfortable doing that. So I'm not going to make it double-sided. That's just the easiest scenario here, right? So I'm not even going to sweat it. I would just make 2 belts. No big deal. So this one, right? I'm not going to worry about this side. It's not going to be seen anyway, so I'm not really going to care about it. But if you wanted to finish that up, you can. Here's my plan. I am simply going to wipe these down. I am going to put in my grommets here. I know this looks like an eyelet, and it is, but an eyelet with the collar on the back is a grommet, right? So I'm going to put in my grommets on all the edges, and I think I'm just going to finish it with some Resolene, which is kind of a sealant, so that I don't have to worry about this dye maybe leaching out if it gets damp or wet, because we don't want to do that, okay? So I'm going to paint that on there, and that'll give it a pretty good protective finish that's still very flexible. So that's going to be it. So I'm going to do that, go make myself another drink, finish this up, and then I will show you the final results.
All right, so here's the final results. It's been a little bit of time since I made that last video, so I wanted to give you the results finally. This one hasn't been worn yet, but you can see how all of this turned out really awesome with our nice little grommets around each side. So I believe this one will be incorporated into next year's costume for the Mrs. Hobbit. And so you can see like how awesome that looks, right? And it's just one piece of leather. So tooling is really important when it comes to like creating some designs. I'm going to try to work on a couple of designs, maybe of this in the future that has a little bit more depth to it, that doesn't necessarily include a bunch of tooling. So something that's kind of more easily done for the beginner. But these turned out pretty fun. I like those. The red one is the one that got worn with the mushroom costume this year. And so this is what we ended up with for that one. So you can see that the red really stands out. There's a few little places that I went a little bit heavy on the dye. It's not necessarily reading in this kind of bright, washed out light, but it looks great. It turned out fantastic with the rivets. And so you can see put together, I just used some leather stripping for this, but of course you can use like a shoestring or kind of whatever, jute or whatever you want to use, cotton cords or linen or whatever. But with the single piece in the back, right? Like I said, I modified this so that it was 3 pieces. You have a full back piece and then a front piece that you can undo. The benefits of this, if you look online, you'll see that there's a lot of different belts for the ladies that you can either open in the front You can open in the back, or you can just kind of do sides. So if the front is a full piece and the back is a full piece, that's a side one. But a lot of them will lace up in the back, which is fine. The issue is that can become a problem trying to lace that up yourselves, especially if you need to take it off to go to the bathroom or whatever. So consider that in your build as to how you want to approach this. If you want it a full piece in the back, then it's going to be laced up on the side. So make sure that you have ample space for the ladies to do that. If you only do like only back lacing, that could run into an issue of trying to tie that up. And some ladies are phenomenal at this. They don't need help. They got it. Okay. But if you're not comfortable or familiar with doing that, I would recommend either a side piece or a front piece opening just to make it easier in terms of getting your costume on. That's my take as a dude with a wife. Ladies out there, you probably have your own opinion on that. So leave a comment. I'll course correct if I need to. That's just been my experience building stuff for my lady and likely soon to be my daughter costumes. So yeah, I'm gaining some experience here. So anyway, this is how they turned out. Really, really simple. Again, one piece, nothing crazy. Really simple, which is what I like. But I'm starting to delve into a few more things that might be a little bit more complex with more pieces to it. But of course, more pieces means more money spent on leather, and I gotta rebuild the coffers for any of that. Okay, so check out the links below for more information on this and any way that you can support the Hobbit, of course. I'll put some of the links as well to the grommets that I used and to some other tools for my Amazon links. Again, that will help me with the channel and getting more leather because I've kind of spent out for a while until I can recoup some of that cost myself. It gets expensive, everybody. Leather work can get real expensive real fast, so caution in going down the rabbit hole. All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it, and I've got lots of projects in the works. I'll see you soon. Thanks.